Imagine you're cleaning out a closet. You find an old hard drive. You barely remember what's on it. Out of curiosity, you plug it in, and suddenly you discover something strange. Projects you forgot existed, skills you forgot you learned, ideas you once obsessed over, entire parts of yourself that seem almost unfamiliar now. It's a weird feeling because none of it disappeared. You just stopped opening it. Most people are living their lives exactly like that, running the same routines, solving the same problems, using the same parts of themselves every day, while some of their most powerful abilities sit archived in the background, not deleted, archived. The popular idea of potential is that it's something you need to build, something you're missing, something you have to acquire. But what if that's backwards? What if some of your untapped potential already exists? What if it's been sitting there for years, covered in dust, ignored, waiting? Because here's something interesting about the brain: it has a use it or lose it policy, and that policy doesn't always work the way people think. Today, we're looking at the Latent Genius Protocol, a way of identifying the abilities you've accidentally archived, and the 3 steps that bring them back online. The brain is constantly making decisions about efficiency. What should stay active? What should stay accessible? What should receive energy? And what should be pushed into storage? This process helps you function. If your brain treated every skill you've ever learned as equally important, it would waste enormous amounts of energy. So it prioritizes. The things you use regularly become stronger, faster, more available. The things you stop using slowly move into the background. This is one reason people talk about being rusty. The pathways still exist, you just haven't traveled it in a while. Imagine a road through a forest. Use it every day and it stays clear. Ignore it for 10 years and the path becomes difficult to see. But underneath the brush, the road is still there. And that's important because many people assume they've lost parts of themselves. The creative part, the curious part, the ambitious part, the playful part. Often, they haven't lost those parts at all. They've simply stopped visiting them. The skill wasn't deleted. The pathway became overgrown. Which brings us to the first step: personal archaeology. Think back 5 years, 10 years, maybe even 15. What was the thing you obsessed over? Not because it made money, not because it looked impressive, not because it advanced your career. Because you genuinely couldn't stop thinking about it. Maybe it was drawing, maybe it was music, writing, building things, sports, psychology, programming, photography, learning languages, whatever it was. There was probably a period where it consumed your attention effortlessly. You lost track of time doing it. Nobody had to motivate you. Nobody had to remind you. You did it because you wanted to. Then something happened. Life became practical. Responsibilities appeared. Productivity became important. Performance became important. And slowly, that interest got pushed aside. Not because it wasn't valuable, because it wasn't immediately useful. This is where most people make a mistake. They assume the abandoned interest was a distraction. What if it wasn't? What if it was a clue? Because the things that naturally pull your attention often reveal something important about how your mind is wired. So here's the exercise. Write down 3 interests, skills, or obsessions you've completely abandoned. Not things you miss, things that once made you feel mentally alive. That's where the audit begins. The second step is reignition. And this is where most people sabotage themselves, because they try to go from 0 to 100. They pick up an old skill and immediately compare themselves to who they used to be. The musician compares themselves to their old performances. The athlete compares themselves to their old conditioning. The writer compares themselves to old work. And almost immediately, they become discouraged. Not because the ability is gone, because their expectations are too heavy. The goal is not mastery. The goal is reconnection. 20 minutes, once a week, that's enough. Not every day, not a complicated system, just 20 minutes. No goals, no metrics, no pressure, no audience, no performance. You're not trying to become great again. You're clearing the brush off an old path. That's it. And something surprising often happens. After a few weeks, the feeling starts returning. Not the skill. The feeling, the curiosity, the engagement, the mental energy, the part of yourself you thought was gone. And that's when people realize something. The thing they missed wasn't the hobby. It was the version of themselves that existed while doing it. The third step is where things become interesting, because the real value isn't always in recovering the old skill, it's in combining it with the person you've become. Most people think specialists have an advantage. Sometimes they do, but some of the most unusual breakthroughs come from hybrids, people who connect 2 worlds that normally stay separate. a former athlete who approaches business like training, a musician who thinks about software through rhythm and structure, a writer who uses psychology, an engineer who applies artistic thinking. This is where latent genius often hides, not inside one skill, but between skills. The old interest contains patterns, ways of seeing, ways of solving problems, ways of thinking. And when you bring those patterns into your current life, something changes. You stop looking like everyone else. You become harder to categorize and you become an anomaly because you're no longer running the same software as everyone around you. You're combining systems, and combination creates originality. Here's the truth: you are not a finished product, you're a collection of layers, different versions of yourself, different interests, different obsessions, different ways of seeing the world. Some of those layers are active, some have been dormant for years, but dormant isn't gone. Dormant means waiting. Waiting for attention, waiting for curiosity, waiting for an invitation back into your life. Most people spend years trying to become someone new. Meanwhile, parts of the person they already were are sitting quietly in storage, not because they weren't valuable, because they were forgotten. So let me ask you something. What's one skill, hobby, or obsession you had 10 years ago that you've completely let go of? What was it and why did it stop? Let me know in the comments. I'd genuinely love to hear your answers, because hidden inside those old stories, you might find a clue about who you're capable of becoming next. The hardware is capable of far more than your daily routine requires. Let's start the update, and I'll see you in the next video.